Welcome to the Deep Dive. We take a fascinating topic, explore the research behind it, and pull out the key insights for you.
That's the plan.
Today, we're looking at a really interesting approach to career education. It's about using games, specifically on mobile devices,
Right, mobile tech.
to teach high school students who have mild intellectual disabilities.
Exactly. We've been digging into this specific article. It's called The Design and Evaluation of a Multi-Scaffolding Game-Based Career Education Teaching Module with Mobile Technology for High School Students with Mild Intellectual Disabilities. Bit of a mouthful.
Yeah, quite the title.
But our goal today really is to understand if this method can actually make a difference. In how well these students learn, how motivated they get, and how engaged they become in thinking about their future careers.
So the core question, I guess, is, can this kind of game-based learning be, more effective
Yeah.
and maybe more engaging for these students?
Yeah, is it better than, say, traditional methods?
Because the study really emphasizes there's a need here, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Getting career education right is just so important for these students making that leap from school.
To the working world, absolutely. The researchers stress that having that solid foundation, it helps students see their potential, set goals,
Meaningful goals.
meaningful career goals, and that ultimately helps smooth out that transition, making it more successful.
Okay, so knowing how crucial that transition is,
Right.
what teaching methods did the paper say are already known to work well for students with mild intellectual disabilities? Like, what's the baseline?
Well, the paper goes into several strategies that are generally seen as effective. Things like highly structured lessons,
Structure how?
like short activities, maybe 10 to 15 minutes max, using materials that build on each other logically, step by step, and lots of repetition. That's key for reinforcement.
Okay.
They also highlight using visual cues, pictures, diagrams, that sort of thing to help with understanding, and reinforcement, both tangible items and social praise.
Like saying good job or maybe small rewards.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also providing different kinds of support, which, in education they call scaffolding.
Scaffolding. Right, we hear that term. What did that look like here? What kinds did they focus on?
So scaffolding is basically temporary support, right? To help someone learn something new. In this study, they looked at a few types. Retrospective scaffolding,
Yes.
helping students connect the new stuff to things they already learned. Then there's peer scaffolding students learning together from each other,
Okay.
and demonstration scaffolding, which is pretty much what it sounds like, showing them how to do something.
Modeling it.
Precisely. And what's interesting is how the game module they actually designed wove all these strategies together.
Okay, that was my next question. How do you actually build those structured approaches into a game? Seems tricky.
It does, but they were very intentional about it. For instance, keeping the game sessions short, around that 15-minute mark we mentioned, helps with focus. The game rules were simplified and explained multiple times. Visuals were, everywhere on the game cards, and short videos accessed by mobile tech, even on worksheets.
So, multimodal.
Very much so. And the gameplay itself was set up to encourage that peer interaction and collaboration.
Sounds like a really thoughtful design. Now, the study isn't just about good teaching practices in general. It's specifically about game-based learning, GBL. Why use games for individuals with intellectual disabilities in the first place? What was the thinking there?
Well, there's a growing body of research, and this paper points to some of it, suggesting that GBL can have really positive effects for learners with disabilities.
Like what?
Things like boosting motivation, making learning more effective overall. I mean, if you think about it, a well-designed game can just be a much more engaging, enjoyable way to learn compared to maybe just listening to a lecture.
Yeah, it definitely shifts it from passive listening or just memorizing facts to something more active, maybe even fun. Did the study mention specific examples of games working well before?
Yes, they did. They brought up a few relevant ones. One study used a board game for math calculations with students with MID, found it helped their performance.
Okay, a board game.
Yeah, and another used an oral hygiene board game for adults with intellectual disabilities. That one apparently improved not just their knowledge, but also their actual habit.
Wow. Okay, so real-world impact.
Exactly. And they even mentioned research using mobile games. This one was for teaching Urdu language to people with intellectual disabilities, which also showed good results for learning and interest.
So there's definitely a precedent here. This study is building on that foundation. Tell us about the specific game they used for career education.
Okay, so it was called the Career Education Board Game, or CEBG. It was actually adapted from an existing board game, one focused on human resources.
Oh, okay.
And the main aim was to help students understand, what different careers are like, what skills you need for them. And they did this through matching activities,
Yes.
like matching character cards maybe representing interests or personality types with career cards, and also matching ability cards with career cards.
Okay, so a matching game at its core. But how did they layer in the educational stuff, the technology?
Right, this is where it gets clever. The game used picture cards with clues about careers, but also, and this is key QR codes.
Ah, the mobile tech link.
Exactly. Students scan these QR codes with a phone or tablet, and it links them to short videos introducing those specific careers.
Oh, neat.
So they'd look at the picture clue, watch the video, maybe discuss it, and then decide which career and ability cards were the best match.
That really integrates the technology right into the gameplay loop.
Very cool. And you mentioned multi-scaffolding was built into the CEBG. How exactly did the gameplay provide that support?
They did it in a few ways. For cognitive support, the text on everything was really clear, easy to read. Game rules were simplified, explained repeatedly by the instructor.
Lots of visual supports, PowerPoint intro, the cards, the videos, worksheets, plus keeping rounds to about 15 minutes. And the instructors guided group discussions, prompting them on strategies, how to find matches efficiently.
So, breaking it down, providing multiple entry points. What about the peer scaffolding? How did the game get them learning from each other?
Well, the instructors would ask specific questions during the game, designed to get students talking to each other about the clues, the possible matches.
Prompting discussion.
Right. And the game was inherently collaborative. You played together, so students naturally discussed and worked together to figure things out. That really boosted the peer learning.
Makes sense. And what were the actual bits and pieces they were using, the physical materials for the CEBG?
They had job requirement cards, career type cards, prerequisite ability cards.
Listing the skills needed.
Exactly. Then the QR code videos we talked about, accessible via mobile devices, and score markers to track progress.
Okay, so they developed this game, infused it with teaching strategies, got the materials ready. How did they actually test if it worked? What was the study setup?
They used what's called a quasi-experimental design.
Meaning?
Meaning they compared two groups, but it wasn't a super strict lab setting, which is pretty common for research done in actual schools. You had the experimental group using the CEBG.
The game group.
Right. And the control group, who got traditional career teaching lectures, PowerPoints, same topics though.
Okay.
Both groups took a pre-test before anything started and a post-test after to see what they learned. The game group also took a delayed post-test a week later.
To check retention.
Exactly, see if it stuck. And the game group also filled out questionnaires about their experience, asking about engagement, what they call flow state, motivation, and just, did they like the game? Did they accept it?
And who are the students involved? How many?
It was 32 high school students in Taiwan, all identified as having mild intellectual disabilities. Average age was around 16 and a half. They were randomly assigned to either the game group or the traditional teaching group.
Okay, 32 students. So they ran the experiment, collected the test scores, the questionnaires. What did they find? What were the main results? Did the game work?
Yeah, the results were pretty interesting. First off, learning effectiveness. Both groups, game and traditional, showed significant improvement from pre-test to post-test. So both methods taught them something.
Okay, so traditional teaching wasn't ineffective.
No, not at all. And interestingly, there wasn't a significant difference between the groups on that immediate post-test score.
So the game wasn't necessarily better at initial learning.
Not statistically better on that immediate test. However, the game group did show better retention on that delayed post-test a week later. They remembered more.
Ah, okay. That's a really important finding, isn't it? Retention is huge.
It really is.
What about that engagement factor, the flow state?
The game group reported experiencing a high flow state. They felt really absorbed, enjoyed it, felt motivated.
What contributed to that feeling?
A key thing they mentioned was feeling the game gave clear, immediate feedback. They called it a self-contained goal. The game itself kind of guided them and let them know how they were doing, which kept them engaged.
So the game mechanics themselves were motivating. And speaking of motivation, how did the overall levels compare?
Well, both groups started out pretty highly motivated to learn. But after the intervention, the motivation levels in the game group were significantly higher than in the control group.
So even though both started motivated, the game pushed it even higher.
Yeah, it seemed to give an extra boost to their motivation compared to the traditional method.
That definitely fits the idea that games can make learning more appealing. What did the students think of the game itself? Did they accept it? Find it useful?
Oh, absolutely. High acceptance for the CEBG. They said it was interesting, fun, challenging in a good way, easy to use.
All positives.
Yeah, and importantly, they felt it really helped them understand career knowledge and think about future jobs.
Yeah.
Some direct quotes were things like, "It was super fun and really helpful for my future."
That's fantastic feedback. When the learners themselves see the value and enjoy it, that's a win.
Definitely.
Did the researchers find any other connections, like did higher flow correlate with better learning?
Yes, they found several positive correlations in that game group. Higher post-test scores tended to go along with higher delayed post-test scores, but also with higher reported flow, motivation, and game acceptance.
So it all links together.
It seems so. And flow, motivation, and game acceptance were also positively correlated with each other. It suggests this positive cycle. If you're enjoying it and feel engaged with the flow, you're more motivated, you like the game more, and you tend to learn and remember better.
A virtuous cycle, kinda.
You could say that, yeah.
Now, the study also looked at something called learning behavior patterns, LBP. What were they actually observing there?
They were watching how the students behaved and interacted during the activities.
And what did they see differently between the groups?
Well, the game group had fewer off-topic behaviors. They seemed more focused on the task compared to the control group.
Suggests the game kept them more engaged.
That's the interpretation. Also, the game group had more discussions specifically about the knowledge and strategies needed for the game. They were using the videos, the cards, talking about them.
Whereas the control group?
Their discussions were more sort of general cognitive discussion and more focused on just writing down answers based on the lecture or slides.
Makes sense. The game provides concrete things to discuss. Did they see differences within the game group based on how well students learn?
Yes. They noticed students who learned more effectively, the high achievers in that group, tended to actively discuss things when they got partially correct answers. They tried to figure it out.
Like problem solving out loud.
Exactly. The students who learned less effectively didn't really engage in that kind of discussion when they hit a snag.
Interesting. So that active processing during the game seems linked to better outcomes. What about flow state within the game group? High flow versus low flow students.
Another difference there. The high flow students tended to use a wider variety of strategies in the game. They were more flexible, and if they got distracted, they were better at getting back to task-related talk.
And the low flow group.
They tended to stick to the same strategies, more repetitive, and after a distraction, they were more likely to drift back into just social chat, not related to the game task.
So that deep engagement, that flow, really seems connected to more effective and focused learning behaviors.
It certainly looks that way from these observations.
Okay, so taking all these findings together, the better retention, higher motivation, positive reception, the behavioral differences, what are the big implications? What do the researchers suggest we do with this?
They basically suggest that there's real potential here. Integrating game-based approaches like the CEB into regular career education for students with mild intellectual disabilities seems like a good idea.
Because it works and the students like it.
Pretty much. They do add a couple of practical suggestions, though. Maybe using smaller group sizes than they did in the study they had groups of 4. Maybe smaller would allow for more individual instructor support.
More scaffolding for each student.
Right. And they also suggest expanding the types of careers covered in the game over time to keep it relevant as the job market changes.
Both seem like very sensible, practical points for implementation. It's not just games are good, it's here's how we might use this specific type of game effectively.
Exactly. They also noted a couple limitations or areas for future research, like testing if this specific game works for students with different or more significant disabilities, and maybe including a delayed post-test for the control group next time too, for a fuller comparison on retention.
Good points for follow-up work. Okay, so if we had to boil it down, what's the main takeaway for you, for our listeners, from this deep dive?
I think the core insight is that game-based learning, especially when it's thoughtfully designed with the right supports, that scaffolding we talked about, and uses tech like mobile devices appropriately. It really shows promise for career education for these students.
It's not just about learning facts.
Right. It seems to help with learning effectively, yes, but it also gives a significant boost to motivation, keeps students actively engaged, and might even help them remember things longer.
It really underscores the power of play in learning, doesn't it? It's clearly more than just making things fun.
Absolutely, and it pushes you to think broader. How can we leverage these ideas, engaging gameplay, personalized support, whether digital or physical games, to make learning better?
More effective, maybe more enjoyable.
Yeah, more enjoyable too, for lots of different learners across different subjects, different ages.
That's a really great question to leave people with.
Yeah.
How can we tap into that basic human drive to play to create genuinely better learning experiences for everyone? Thanks so much for walking through this study.
My pleasure. It was really interesting stuff.